Okay, so welcome back to part two of our introduction to Hamlet. So let's consider now Hamlet as the first modern man. Hamlet's a play concerned with the question, who am I? Is our role in life defined by fate? Is it defined by family, our own choices? Are we completely alone in the world, or are we irrevocably tied to others? When we think about Hamlet as this first modern man, we're seeing Hamlet in the context of being just prior to the Enlightenment period and the growth of reason as driving human scientific and intellectual endeavours. We see Hamlet having the early echoes of this. Some critics have said that Hamlet wasn't that popular in 1600 because the audiences just weren't ready for this yet. Hamlet struggled with these existential questions. These are questions about the nature of being and what it means to be alive. Questions has led critics such as Harold Bloom and Freud to suggest that Hamlet is a representation of a fully modern man. He marks the beginning of a new kind of literature that focuses on the struggles and conflicts within a single individual rather than on external conflicts between individuals. As I said in part one, we see most of this play Hamlet struggling in himself about what he needs to do, the morality of what he needs to do, talking and thinking about it rather than acting on what he needs to do. And he's governed by his reason in this. And that's what marks him out as being a modern man. So the key questions we see raised through his inner struggles are the differences between revenge and justice. Is one more moral than the other? Does the act of revenge irrevocably change an individual? Action versus inaction. Is action always virtuous? Is it possible to take action in a world where nothing is ever certain, where nothing is morally black and white? Fate versus autonomy. Do we have control over the shape of our own lives? Are our roles in life always preordained? So we have this transition from the old Catholic ideas pre-Reformation that our lives were predetermined by fate, and the Protestant Reformation in England changed that to say that we are autonomous individuals and we're responsible for ourselves and our own actions. We see in the play these questions about appearance and reality. Is deceit a fundamental part of the way society functions? We have a character who is pretending to be mad throughout the entire play. We have Claudius, who's pretending to be a good and virtuous king when all the while he's a murderer. Is life a series of parts that we act in order to get by? We see this idea throughout Shakespeare's plays. We see it at the end of Macbeth, which will come a couple of years later, with Macbeth saying that man is but a poor player who struts and frets across the stage. We see in As You Like It, all the world's a stage and we are but merely players. Is there a truth under all the appearances in our lives? Questions about madness. Is insanity just a sane way of reacting to the madness of the world around us? This idea here has informed many recent productions of Hamlet, where the play where the set is designed as the inside of a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of psychiatric ward. Loyalty and betrayal. What constitutes loyalty? To whom do we owe it? Family, lovers, state, ourselves? When we look at Ophelia here, we see the struggle for loyalty. We also see it if we look closely at Gertrude and her decision to marry her husband's brother. What happens when loyalties conflict? Old worlds versus new worlds. How does one function when caught between two worldviews? What are the emotional, psychological, physical costs of this struggle? Keep in mind that in 1600, the young people in 1600, their fathers and grandfathers were born Catholics. This generation were born Protestants. And so that brings us to the end of part two, and I'll pick it up again with the third part of this presentation.